first of all, have you seen the run? Okay. Like we got to do these victory laps from time to time. I think it was one of the first few times I ever went on CNBC. I had a Citi guy and me, and it was like a bull bear case. And basically he was putting the price target at like $60 and just beating up Oracle, no innovation, no disruption, bad business model, customers hate them. And I basically came in there and said, I think you're totally missing it. This was right as Gen 2 Cloud was starting to take shape. You were seeing this run since the acquisitions of NetSuite Fusion, and this mountain of data the company has at its disposal. And I mean, just what a good quarter. I mean, the growth, fiscal revenue up 18%, 22 in constant currency. Now, remember, that's faster growth than Salesforce. And I'm not saying that to knock Salesforce. I think Salesforce has been kind of a bellwether of software and growth. And, Oracle has found it's a bit of its stride now. And Pat, some of the numbers I think that were really interesting, and you and I both shared that cool app economy that shows kind of how the company makes money. But outside of that, there were some data points that they talked about in their growth. Look, infrastructure growth of 63% for the full year. So OCI's infrastructure right now is growing at about 3 times the clip of the other cloud providers. Now, they're not breaking out infrastructure anymore to the degree which we would need to do a full-on comparison. But
I don't know. No, are you sure?
I don't think they break out just kind of IaaS anymore.
They literally are breaking out IaaS now. This is Oracle. Oh, right. Sorry.
I mean, I can't compare to Oracle to what I guess I'm saying is my assertion is at 63 for the year, 77 for Q4, they're taking share. At this point, Oracle actually has to be taking market share now, albeit it's a pretty small number at about 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
But that is interesting because when you're growing at 3 times the market rate, it means some customers, and I have to imagine it's a combination of the more useful, utilitous Gen 2 and also the aggressive pricing that Oracle has. But Oracle still has great margins, so I want to make that pretty clear. The other thing that was really, Pat, that was pretty impressive was the 45% growth in their SaaS and cloud application business.
Where did that come from?
It does not calculate. I mean, again, are they taking business off of Dynamics and off of Salesforce and off of like SAP, and they're never ones to not tell you on their earnings call. So they gave some good examples of customer wins that they've taken. But Pat, I mean, these are really, really impressive growth numbers. Now, that's the cloud application business. Now, I do want to be clear. They split out applications, Fusion, and NetSuite. So NetSuite's growing in the mid-20s, Fusion's in the mid-20s, then the rest of their cloud application, which is some of their CX and apps and stuff, that's growing at 45%, but still a really impressive growth rate across the board. The company also had a pretty big announcement around its, some of what it's doing around Gen AI. And so it's basically going after having low cost. They partner with NVIDIA, but low cost GPU clusters. So they're going to take the pricing model, the low price model, to the market. In fact, that's something I've said for a while, and it was verified for me when I went to the Google Executive Cloud Forum, and I had customers, and I was talking to some of the leaders, the ones that are actually doing the Google's CPU, and they were doing the NVIDIA partnerships. And I asked the question. I said, as Gen AI is scaling and you're doing more AI with more customers, I said, do the customers care which silicon they're running anymore? If it's all done in Vertex, if it's all done using your front end. And basically what they said is that there is a significant shift. They were very bullish about NVIDIA, and they understand the value of that relationship. So they were not by any means poo-pooing that. But they basically did say that as more and more customers and startups, unless they're doing these really large, complex training, and that customers are more interested in just the efficiency and cost of being able to spin up AI apps like in a Gen AI app builder.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what's going on there. So you do have to wonder, is there sort of an interesting market opportunity for a pivot for Oracle for those that do have these big training workloads, that if they can be the price performance leader in terms of offering the same hardware, will they have a chance to take some additional market? And I mean, clearly they're doing so with traditional cloud workloads, Pat. So, look, it was an overall strong performance. And of course, you have a company that pays a dividend, that consistently does buybacks and returns to shareholders. And so no matter what, my T-shirt, Pat, of my Rush class in college said, loved or hated, but never ignored. And I think that's really, apropos for uh, Oracle, but the company just keeps executing, and you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little bit of a victory lap as well. Gen 1, I was brutal. And I wrote brutal stuff about Gen 1 OCI because it wasn't any good. It was overpriced, low performance. The technology was dated. To the company's credit, Gen 2 is literally just a miracle. And if you look at when the infrastructure was created, it's actually the youngest infrastructure architecture out there right now. So, when Larry got on the call and he's talking about generative AI and he's saying, hey, we have the highest performance, lowest cost, and the biggest amount of scalability, most people might do an eye roll and say, okay, that's Larry Larry talking about Larry, CTO and founder Larry Ellison and chairman. But you have to pay attention, right, to what he is saying, given the success that they're having with generative AI. And listen, I'm not confused about scale. Okay, I know that AWS, Azure, and GCP have more scale, but AWS started 19 years ago, and Gen 2 I think is 2 to 3 years old. And the business model that they have too is very interesting. Some cloud providers charge more for the basics than they do for the add-ons, and that's a theory that says, hey, if I can entice people with the add-ons and they pull through high-priced basics, that makes sense. Oracle is pricing their basics low and their add-ons high, which is another way to do pricing. And their business success is, shows that it's working. Again, whether it's 20 times smaller, I don't care. This is a long game. You have to have scale and show up, and you have to build it, and then much bigger things can happen. So kudos to Oracle for the beat raise and the increased details, right? That 45% growth on SaaS apps, I have never seen that before, right? Like, what have they shown from Fusion and NetSuite has always been ERP. Now, they showed ERP for both, but that's, basically a 20%, 20 plus percent. I've never seen this 45%, and I got to dig in and see where this comes from.